Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I have the great honor and privilege to be here today with Ana Salvador in her home and doll studio, and she has graciously agreed to do an interview with me, and so thank you so much for inviting me here and for agreeing to do this. I know there's so many viewers at home that can't wait to learn more about you, so
it's my honor that you came to my studio. I'm so happy.
When Ana says, hey, if you're ever in town and you want to come to my studio, you come to her studio. You come to town and you come to her studio. So, all right, so my first question that I have for you, this is a question I love to ask everybody, and I think it's because it gives so much background on somebody's doll history. What was your favorite doll when you were a child?
My favorite doll was a doll that was, I called her Mona. I don't know how to describe that doll, but it had a very big head, and it was from a puppet show.
Okay.
And Muñeca was the name of the doll. I'm Portuguese, so I can only say the name in Portuguese. I don't know if it was made in the States or not, but it had a closed body, a very tiny closed body, and a huge head with kind of wool hair glued on the head. And maybe that's why I like those with big heads. I don't know.
I love the big head aesthetic with dolls. I think it's just so...
It was from the 70s. It was a doll typical from the 70s, and you see him now as a vintage item on eBay sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. It's always so interesting for me to hear about people's childhood dolls, because I think that's what leads so many of us on the doll journeys that we are now. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey as an artist, kind of how you started up to how you got to where you are today?
Oh, that's a long journey.
It's a long story. It's a long story, but
I'll try to say it a little bit concise. So it started in 1998 when I went to Finland, and there I saw my first art dolls, and they were like these very primitive dolls made of air drying clay, and you could hang them on a wall, and they were like this type of fairies, and I was enchanted by them. But at the time I was a student, I couldn't afford them, so I thought, you know what, maybe I could make something similar when I get home. And then I tried it, and all my friends were very enthusiastic, and I started making for them. And then I started putting them hanging on the walls in cafes and in bars, and people started buying them.
oh, wow.
And that was in Portugal, when I was still living in Portugal, a long time ago. And those were my first dolls. And then when I moved to the Netherlands in 2003, I didn't speak the language. I was a little bit looking about what I could do, and then I decided to paint, and then that didn't work out very well. And then I decided, why not make dolls again, like I did in Portugal? And then it started from there, and I've been doing as a profession dolls since 2007. So a long time ago, and that was the year I was a part of the Dabida, which is a doll group from the Netherlands and Belgium, and it was a big motivation for me to continue to make art dolls. And resin dolls I only started later. It was my first resin dolls were starting. I started in 2014, and I got the first resin shipment from the company in 2015, and those were Lucy and Lisa. So those were my first.
Well, we're dolls. Very grateful for your motivation to make dolls, because you have some of the most beautiful, intricate, amazing dolls out on the market. But we'll get to that in just a minute. So the next thing I want to talk about is, you talked about resin, but you do also actively make dolls in porcelain. Can you talk to me a little bit about the process of how you make a doll from start to finish?
Oh my God, that's also difficult to describe in words. So I start by making the polymer clay.
This is so cool.
So this is my sculpture. I make this from scratch. I buy the polymer clay in a bar, and then I start modeling the clay. It takes me many hours. This head is dirty, and it has here this line, and this is the line that I scratch to make the plaster mold. So this head is a little bit dirty, but this is the head of Peggy. So you can see the size difference.
Mm-hmm.
So this head, I then, after I sculpted, I made the plaster mold, and then the porcelain shrinks in a kiln 30%. And that's why you get a smaller head in porcelain. I think I even have.
Do you have the porcelain?
I
Oh,
do.
wow. Oh, check that out.
So this is
there's
the porcelain
head. So you've got the polymer clay, which
Yeah.
she originally hand sculpted.
Yeah.
Then the porcelain that you created the mold for, and what do you call it when it's porcelain? Is it called casting as well?
It is a casting.
It's a casting.
Yeah, because you can reproduce.
Okay.
So, and then this is the resin. The resin also, when they produce the molds out of the porcelain for the resin, it also shrinks a little bit. So the resin is a little bit smaller than the porcelain.
This, to me, she showed me this a little bit earlier. We've been here for a while just chatting, and she showed me this. I'm like blown away to see how amazing this is and how cool it is. And something that I didn't tell you earlier, I talked to another artist at Modern Doll, Annette Herman, and she also sends porcelain dolls to her factory to have them done.
Does.
Because she says, and you guys are the only two artists I've ever heard of that do that. Everybody else I know sends the polymer clay. And if there's other artists out there that do that you guys know of, I'd love to hear about it, because I think it's so interesting, because then you're able to retain your master. She has her original.
For me, the main reason why I do it like this, it's a lot of extra work. It's true, but I'm so afraid of sending the original sculpted work, because it takes me so long to make the sculpt. And if it would get damaged or lost in the post when you send it so far away to China, I would get devastated. It would be like maybe a couple of years of work wasted. So I prefer to send the porcelain. If this gets damaged or lost, I can reproduce again.
And you create all your own molds for your porcelain.
Yeah.
And you cast it, and it's called fire it yourself, like to create or bake it in the oven. What is it? What is the process called?
There's a plaster mold with a hole, and then you pour the porcelain in that hole. I can show you one.
So we have here the mold that you created from Peggy. So you made this mold from this head.
Yeah.
And then how do you get to this head from this mold?
So so you make this plaster mold, you close it. Shall I close it? So
Wow.
it has these keys that fit together. You have to put an elastic so that it doesn't open, of course. And then you pour the liquid porcelain in that hole.
Wow.
And you wait for the porcelain to dry a little bit. And then you see if the porcelain is already dried enough for you to open the mold. And when you open the mold, you have fresh, it's almost like fresh clay. You can even change it a little bit. You can actually customize a porcelain doll, because you can, when you take the head out of the mold,
It's still soft.
it's still soft, and
I didn't know that.
And you can change it. It's like working with clay.
I never knew that. I
Yeah.
thought, you know what I thought? This is my ignorance. I always thought that artists bake the head inside the mold in the oven. You don't do that.
So you have to clean the head, because the head sometimes has little air bubbles or little imperfections, and you can even make the lines a little bit deeper, because to make the mold, for example, the ears cannot have a lot of detail, so you have to carve the detail back.
Wow.
Because otherwise, if you have too much details and little holes, then you cannot remove
So
the plaster.
actually, like, this ear to me looks a little more detailed than this ear, so you don't probably have to put as much detail here,
Yes.
because it's not going to translate to the mold anyway.
Because then you cannot take, this is a hard clay, so then you cannot take the plaster out of the clay. When you have a lot of details, the plaster gets in the details, and then it gets stuck there, and you cannot pull it out.
This is so fascinating. That is so cool.
So then you have to sculpt again all the details
Right.
back, like the nose and the ears, especially the eyes a little bit. And you can even change a bit the mouth. You can do all kinds of things in that face.
So cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea that's the way porcelain worked. That's amazing. But you guys can see the size difference here in the body, like the chest piece and the torso, between the polymer clay versus the porcelain that she's done there. That is so cool. Like, I'm just in awe. It's amazing, like really amazing. And then so this is what you would send to your factory, and that's what they do the resin pieces off of. That's incredible. So that's what it takes, guys, to get from, you know, the rough, I mean, the rough sketch. Like, you go from this, when you do a doll, do you sketch it out or anything, or you just kind of work with the clay and figure out as you go?
I do a sketch specially for proportions. First, what I normally do is that the head is for me the most exciting part to sculpt.
Right, yeah.
So once I have a very good head that I'm excited about, then I invest the time on the body. And then I like to make a sketch to see the proportions of the head and what the I put the head on the paper, basically, so when it's done, and then I try to make the body for that head. So the head is my beginning point,
right?
And then I start everything from there.
Wow, that's so cool to me. And you have different bodies for almost all of your dolls, because I'm thinking only a few of your dolls actually share bodies with each other. Because does Peggy have the same body as these?
No,
I didn't think so. Yeah.
Peggy is actually Peggy shares the same arms and legs.
Okay.
But the torso, this part is different.
Right.
Let's see if I have here. This is Emily.
Emily. That was my first doll.
And let's see if I can find Emily's body.
How cool. It's just amazing to me, even like how smooth, because I've made little polymer clay doodads before, never a doll of course, but how smooth the polymer clay even feels just after you've processed, like you've baked it and perfected it for mold making.
Unfortunately, I cannot find
Peggy's
chest.
Oh, Peggy's is here.
Oh, sorry, Emily's chest.
That's fine. I just think I think it's so cool just to see.
Yeah.
Just to see them here like this. And now I wanted to show you guys too the difference here just in size, so you can see this is porcelain, and when you go from porcelain to resin, this is, I think, a really good representation of how much the size difference is, because that's something that I didn't realize. I didn't know that there was. I knew that when they did it at the factory there was a little bit of, I guess, shrinkage. Yeah. But it's just cool to see, like, this is very, what's the word I'm looking for, tangible, like, to see the size differences here. I just think it's amazing. It's incredible. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer resin or do you prefer porcelain? Do you have a preference?
I do. I have to admit I have a passion for porcelain, but it's so much time consuming, and that's the reason I don't make more porcelain.
Many of those. When did you start working with porcelain?
I started in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, because I went to the NIADA conference to be admitted for the NIADA in 2012, and then I took my first porcelain jointed dolls. And I started having the idea of the resin after hearing Robert Toner in the NIADA conference. And then I thought, why not making a reproduction of my dolls that is more affordable to everybody? And that's where I started having my ideas of producing in resin.
And that's what's great about the resin dolls, because all of Honest dolls are masterpieces. Let me just, the work that you put into the outfits is stunning, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The face, I love the way you paint faces, by the way. It's so soft and it's so beautiful, but it's so expressive. So your dolls, they never have, when you paint, like some people when they paint a doll, it's just kind of flat, you know what I mean? It's not, but your dolls are very emotive. They're very expressive. When I look at them, it's just, I don't know, your painting is just fantastic. I love it.
I try to bring them alive.
You do, you really do. Yeah. And I think that's what's so that's one of the many things that makes your doll so special. But I just think it's incredible. Like that, I appreciate that you made them in resin because it is more accessible to people than porcelain, because the porcelain
easier
is
to play, awesome.
Yeah, and like for me, I've just recently gotten a couple of porcelain dolls, but I'm always so afraid of like breaking a precious piece like that. But with resin, you can be a little rougher with it, I guess.
Yeah, more relaxed. Playing, changing clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, so it's more affordable and easier. That's one of the reasons I also like the resin. By the way, I love resin too. Yeah. But porcelain was my
Porcelain's
first
your passion, right? Yeah. No, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool, but just from the collectors, we appreciate that you have done them in resin as well for us, because
I like resin a lot too.
We love them.
And I like the resin has the advantage that you can change everything. Even if you have a face up and you want to make another face up, you can just wipe that one off and make another one. In porcelain, you cannot do that.
Tell me how that works with porcelain.
It's permanent. It's just you buy the doll and that's it.
That's it.
I mean, in this case, you can change the clothes, you can change the shoes, and even the wig. Right. But the eyes are attached. You cannot change. They're painted or attached eyes with plaster, because in the porcelain, with the mechanism, you cannot just open the head. No. So it has that disadvantage. The advantage of the porcelain is that it doesn't get scratched or yellow. And the paint, if it gets dirty, you can just wipe it off very easily.
And that so wiping paint on porcelain doesn't scratch.
No, it's permanent. It's like a tattoo on the porcelain.
That's cool.
It doesn't come out.
How does it become porcelain? You put it in the oven, I guess, and
so after I remove the fresh porcelain, it's very fragile when I take it out of the mold, and then I have to leave it drying for like a couple of days. But once it's very dry, I clean it with water. No, actually first, because it's so fragile, I give it a little bit of a low fire. 700 Celsius on the kiln, so to make it a little bit more resistant to the cleaning, because otherwise it can break very easily.
Soft,
And then I clean it, and after I polish it and I clean it from the seam lines and everything looks like I want, I give the final bake. I don't know if you call it like that, and then it becomes this kind of almost glass-like material. And then I paint this, And to paint, you also put it on a kiln, and it heats up to also 700 Celsius, and it becomes permanent. And you have to build up the layers, because once you put it on a kiln, the paint almost vanishes. So you have to paint again and again and again. It takes me sometimes 2 weeks to paint a doll.
So like how many layers would you say are on her face?
Many layers. The body is normally 1 or 2 layers. Right. But the face, to build up the eyes, the shadows,
get that definition,
to get the depth on the face, I think maybe 5 or 6 fires.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And then every time it stays on the kiln for 8 hours, and then it has to cool off. It's a long process. It takes only the baking process in the kiln, it takes like a day.
Wow.
Just to heat the kiln and then let it cool out.
I think it's so awesome that you're sharing all of that, because I feel like I'm ignorant towards porcelain, obviously. Like, I didn't know these things. And I think it makes people appreciate, too, at home, how much work
it is a lot of work
goes into a piece like this. Like, it's these are all true art pieces, but the amount of work and labor and love that goes into this, even going into the original doll that she creates to go to the factory, that's a lot of work. Like, that's so cool. Like, I love that. I want to talk about your outfits, because your outfits, the way you do your full sets is just, that's what jumped out to me originally about your dolls, is the way that you dress them, and just the whole look is just so, I don't know what to say. What's the right word I'm looking for? It's just so fantastic. So tell me about, how do you come up with the outfits and things like that?
So I like you can see, I have a small collection of antique dolls. So I like antique and artist dolls. So I like things that are aged and a little bit that survive the time. So I like to make clothes with fabrics and laces that have that look, that it seems like they're here for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think it's charming to combine with a piece that it's modern because it's made fresh.
Yes.
It's an artist doll, but I like the contrast between the antique look of the clothes and the fresh look of the dolls. It brings a contrast that I think it's interesting and I like it.
It's just a very sweet look, and it's very unique. You know, you've got this mix of modern and kind of vintage and antique, and I love it.
I like the style also. I'm a little bit nostalgic for the antique things too. And I like the style of the clothes also. Besides materials, I'm a bit obsessed with laces. I have a huge collection of laces. I go to all antique markets that I can in the Netherlands to buy laces. They're very hard to find nowadays. And then I love to combine, and some fabrics are modern with antique patterns, and other fabrics I use are very old.
Yeah.
So I like a combination of all kind of things.
They're just so sweet, everything. Now, when I first came in, I've kind of already seen a lot of stuff here, but when I first came in, I saw Emily, and you may have noticed Emily in 2 different resin tones that you haven't seen her in before. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So there's a new pre-order coming in very soon. I think it was supposed to be in the end of September, but it's a bit delayed. So I'm doing it in October.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet about the date.
Okay.
So I decided to, since I was so happy how Peggy turned out. And I love the new resin tones.
They're beautiful. They're so beautiful. I was so
really
excited when you showed Peggy and the new tones. I was like, I have to. So I'm really, really excited about this. They're really
So I thought, why not do the same for Emily? And it's a doll I had a long time ago, a pre-order. I still sold some Emily's I had in stock once in a while. But I decided, why not a new pre-order, and especially with the new tones, I think it's worth it.
So stay tuned for that. God, how can they order from you?
So normally my followers are on Facebook or on Instagram, and I always show the dates of the pre-order there, and also on my website. That it's on my Instagram and Facebook. You can find my website.
And I'll link it below too, so you guys can check it out from there.
So I will announce it there.
Awesome. I'm excited. I'm very excited about that. I think she is especially sweet. I mean, gosh, she's sweet in all 3 colors, but I love Emily in the tan. So she's just. Do you call that color tan?
So this
chocolate?
one I call it chocolate.
And
this one I call it the tan color.
Yeah, okay.
And this one is the original color. And I did for many years that color. It's a little bit like my polymer clay color. And it's inspired because I started making these polymer clay dolls a while ago, one of a kind. And I like the clay tone so much that I thought, when I make resin, I will try to give the resin that same color.
And that's what I was telling her about these 2 dolls. That this is the porcelain, and the resin looks like really close to the porcelain color. And you said you sent that to the factory and asked them to do that color. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really neat.
And I did the same with this color when I so for many years all my resin dolls only had this color because that was the polymer clay color I used to use. Yeah. And I sent a sample and they reproduced that color for me. So this one is also a unique color that for my dolls. But I'm really happy with these new tones.
I love them. I think I think they're beautiful.
This one is very realistic.
Yeah, almost. it's a very like fleshy, lifelike kind of.
And I think you can create a lot more depth in color porcelain. I realized. I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about that. Do you have a favorite of all your dolls that you've ever made? Do you have a favorite?
No.
Really?
I don't. Because I think I'm always excited about the doll I'm making at the moment. So that's the one that's exciting me the most. But I don't know, I cannot choose, honestly.
Really?
No. And I try to make different dolls because I get a little bit, I don't know if bored is the exact word, but I like to change. So I make these lady dolls with a completely different body. I don't have the other dolls that I also produce, but people can find them on the Facebook or Instagram. And I try to make different styles, different bodies. They all have the same type of look, but I like the bodies to be different and the faces.
Your work is very recognizable. Like I can see a doll and instantly, and I think most people can instantly, they recognize that it's your work, but they are all different. They're different enough that they're not the same, but it's like your work is very recognizable.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's very like iconically you, and that is definitely honest work, and I don't know,
I'm glad to hear that. I think that's a good.
But I think they're all very the faces are all very different. And
I like to be challenged indeed to make different faces. Like I have some other polymer clay dolls, for example. This one, this is my Lucy and Lisa dolls in polymer clay.
Wow.
Completely different than the other two.
Yes, they are.
I like the challenge of trying new things and trying different faces also. And different bodies.
Sweet they are.
Oh, and I have, since we're showing the polymer clay, this is Olivia and polymer clay.
Look at her. And they are really all so different. Like even like the shape of Peggy's nose. I remember when you first showed Peggy, I just loved the shape of her nose. Like I like the way that you did her nose, and it's so, I don't know, I love all of your dolls, truly. But I think I think that's what makes your dolls so collectible, is that they are all different. So when they're all different, but they have your unique style on them, and I think that's what's so cool about them. So, oh my gosh. So are you working on anything upcoming that you can tell us about? You told us about the pre-order.
Yes, and I'm working on that doll, on the Dorothy, on the resin. So that's a new doll. I'm not sure where I'm going to open the pre-order, but I'm excited about her. I like her. And that doll has two versions, so I made two heads. One head is for painted eyes, so this one in resin is with painted eyes, but I also have another version of the head with open eyes for glass eyes.
Does it take a lot longer to paint the eyes than just to do a regular face up?
It does.
I would think so, yeah. And the painting is really, you do such a beautiful job of painting. Eyes are one of those things I feel like it would be the most difficult to paint. Is that just my imagination? What do you think is the most difficult part of the doll making process in general?
I think it's a combination of the mouth and the eyes.
Really?
I think the mouth also gives a lot of expression.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And the eyes definitely. But the eyes are more difficult because they require a lot of layers, and if the doll has dead eyes, then you look at it and there's something that it's not right.
Yeah.
So the eyes are very important to bring the doll to life, and the mouth and the eyebrows, the whole expression brings the doll to life. So it is a combination, but indeed the eyes are very important.
Very important. I'm just in heaven, guys. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm trying to think, is there anything that I've left out that you want people to know about you or about your artwork?
No, I think we already said so many things.
We've been talking. I've been here for a couple of hours before we started this, so we've talked about so much. I'm trying to make sure that I include everything. Obviously, we could talk for hours. Just about dolls and about the process and about your work. And I know that people at home, anytime I show one of your dolls, it's just, people are so excited because it's exciting to see the true workmanship that goes into your dolls. Even when the cameraman here, when he first saw your dolls in France at El Doll, he's commented, those dolls are really amazing. She puts a lot of work into that. And he's not a doll collector. I mean, he's, at that time, you know, he was getting his feet wet, I guess, about dolls. I mean, we had been, you know, but he immediately recognized, and I think that's what's so amazing about your work, is it is easy to recognize the workmanship behind it and the artistry that goes into all of your pieces. They're just incredible, really. I was trying to, after I asked you which one of yours was your favorite, I tried to think which one of hers is my favorite. And I don't know.
You don't know?
Because I like them all so much. The cameraman's favorite is Poppy. He told us that earlier. I really like Peggy a lot.
Let's see if
I just don't know.
Poppy.
Here's Poppy. This is the cameraman's favorite. We were looking at her earlier.
The profile is really different than these two. It seems.
Yeah.
It's also, you can see that these are very early dolls, and the most recent dolls have a more
pronounced profile, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe Emily, but I can't pick a favorite of yours because they're all so different.
Yeah.
They're all so, you know, the posability of your dolls is great. That's one of the things about her dolls that I really love, is that they are very posable. So her joint system, she was showing me earlier some of the arm joints that she has. The joint system is really great for her dolls. They're very posable.
This is a little
polymer
clay arm.
Where she actually sculpted all the joints.
Yes.
Look at that. Is that not incredible?
This is all
Is it strung
sculpted
together?
It is, because
oh, wow.
I wanted to test the arm, so I have it with elastic strung.
That's just amazing.
And this is from then I make plaster molds of all these little pieces.
So you have a mold for each little.
I do. Yeah.
Wow. That to me is just, it's so fascinating. Like, to think about that you started with that.
Yeah.
And then we get to this, you know. Started with a block of clay, and here we are, our block of polymer clay.
Yeah.
And we get to this. So
I love to sculpt. It's one of my big passions. This is my favorite. My favorite of the whole doll making process
is the actual sculpting, really,
especially the head.
Wow,
I love the head, because after I finish the head, I look at it and it's like I see a little creature and looking back at me. It's like seeing something you create looking back
at you. Wow.
It's like, I don't know. It's just I love it. That feeling of creating something.
That's so cool.
That is a 3D object
that
you can hold in your hands.
It's very tangible. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you. Are you self-taught, or did you study somewhere to learn all this sculpture stuff?
I did a course of it had some artistic components. It was a design-oriented course, communication design. It was a very it was everywhere. We learned computers. This was in 95. The beginning of the computer phase. But we also had some classes of sketching and clay modeling. So it was very artistic, but also computer oriented. So we had a bit of everything in that course. So I did learn about anatomy, about sketch and proportions and and modeling also.
That's so fascinating.
But I learned most of it by myself.
By doing it yourself. That's what I figured. Yeah. You know, it's something like, I feel like me as a person who I do not create art, and I don't want to. It's not something that I have the patience for. But I feel like you see so many artists that come up with this amazing, like, how could you ever teach that to somebody? And I feel like it's not something that can really be taught. I feel like it's something that has to be,
you have to have a big drive to do it, because otherwise you cannot develop anything. But that's with everything, artistic or not. If you have to be very motivated, and you have to practice a lot, because as more you practice, as better you develop the skill.
Right.
So Since 98 I've been practicing.
Well, your practice has definitely paid off because your dolls are some of the most coveted in the world. They are so beautiful. They are some of the stars in my collection. You know, I have a special shelf for your dolls in my doll room. I love them so much. They're in that special like shelf where I have the separate dolls in the wall. So I just really appreciate that you do this. I know the other collectors at home appreciate you and appreciate your creations. And I just want to say thank you so much for inviting us here today and for doing this interview. And I think that's it. If there's anything else you want to...
I also want to thank you for coming here and interviewing me and doing the work you're doing. It's amazing.
It's my passion, so I feel so privileged to be in the position where I can do this stuff and where I can show people's artwork, amazing artwork, to other people. So that's what I love to do. So anyway,
thank you for that.
Thank you for letting me be here. So guys, thank you so much at home for watching. I'm going to link all of her information below in case you're not already following her, so that you can follow her and you can be tuned in for Emily's pre-order that's going to be upcoming sometime soon. So very excited about that. And we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons from Patreon: Lindsay S., Leah W., Doreen Z., Janice H., Mercedes W., Cindy K., Bear Sunflower, Diane B., Kelly L., Cindy L., Krista R., Shorna R., Shira Star Hobby, Stephanie W., Jessica S., Ray M., Asia C., Shalane C., Penny P., Louisa's Knickknacks, and Marty G. Your support means so much to me and helps me continue bringing you great dolly content. For more information on how you can become a supporter of this channel, check the link in the video description. Thank you so much for watching.